All right, so we just made some big changes towards the end, right? But, so I'll deselect, delete that. So this is the last one I added. But I noticed that I didn't move my character in the last 2 frames. So the way you can check it when you make big moves to see if they're working is to run an animation test. To do that, we need the timeline. So you go to Window and you make sure that you can see the timeline. If you can't see it, go to Window and click on Timeline. Then you want to be on frame by frame animation. So you'll get that option, whether it's a video timeline or frame by frame. Click on frame by frame until you see this. Then you go to the timeline window options, which are in the upper right hand corner of that timeline window. And you're going to say make frames from layers. Now every layer you had is now a frame. Then you can select all of them by holding down Shift and clicking on the end, and then set the timing. And I've been testing mine at 0.4 seconds. So then I hit play. And I see how it works, and it's all working the way I had designed. But then at the end, it just feels a little weird because the character's moving every frame, but at the end, he just kind of pauses. So I need to revisit that frame. So when I'm done with the animation test and I've learned what I need to about what I might want to change or alter, I need to hold down Shift, select all of the frames in the timeline, and then drag them to the trash. So I ran that animation test, and I saw that there's something wrong with these final frames, right? So this one's fine. This one is maybe too much of a jump. So let me reset it, right? So this one I want to change. Probably going to change this one too. So if I go back, I can see I already have my character, right? I'm just going to change the background. And I might even need to go back in my history a little bit because I didn't duplicate the background. That was kind of dumb. And going a little too fast. And this can happen. It's annoying, but it can happen. So I did a lot. And this is all just because, oh no, I did duplicate my background. Yeah. Oh no, but then I changed it. All right, let's see. I got to get to where I hadn't changed it yet. So that's not going to be too far back. Oh no, maybe that's right. No, this is right. Okay, good. Yeah, it's missing at the bottom because that's where the foreground got sucked up. That makes sense. Okay, so now instead of this frame, I want this frame. It just kind of reveals the background. So what do? Go to my topmost visible layer, say Option, Layer, Merge Visible, Command A, Command C, paste it in, delete these. Okay, so that's my next layer. So it went from this to this. So pretty extreme, but that's okay. Now, I want to inhale the background. So I'm going to deselect, delete this, and I'm just going to duplicate the head, and I'm going to move that mouth a little bit with Puppet Warp. Remember, I made it so it's a separate asset. And that mouth is separate as well. And I'm just going to close the mouth a little bit. And I'm going to move the body. Puppet Warp it. Maybe make a duplicate of it first. That's what I should be doing. Edit, Puppet Warp. And I got to pin the bottom of the feet, otherwise they kind of circle out of control. And I'm going to move it down and back like that. Okay, then I have a mouth. Where's that mouth from? I think I just turned it off. So I got to bring that in and back. Doesn't need to be super clean, right? But it needs to make sense. So I'm just going to warp that. Get that to fill in the space. And sit back in the mouth. Okay. Now, we're setting up for the next shot, right? So I want to move that entire body a little bit more. So I'm going to duplicate all these body layers and then merge them together, turn off their component parts, and then puppet warp the whole thing so I can pose the body. So a lot of character animation here. Understanding all of its kind of layers. And I'm going to do it again. And when you puppet warp a whole lot, it ends up starting to look really squishy, which it's definitely starting to do. Okay. But I can always use sharpen. Okay, now I get to turn on this, duplicate the background, and I get to start inhaling it, right? So from here to here, see how the body's moving? That's going to make more sense now as I start to warp this background. So it pulls away from its corners. I can't do it all at once, right? I have to kind of set up the movement before I do it. Kind of pull it in like so. Okay, that's my next frame. So topmost visible layer, option, layer merge visible, Command A, Command C. You really have to kind of think through everything you do, otherwise mistakes happen, and that costs you time. That looks good. Then I go here, deselect, Command D, delete, set up my next frame, duplicate it, and puppet warp it again. Like that, but I didn't pin the feet. So Command Z, pin these toes. Maybe make that knee look less like a Muppet. And rock him back. Like he's doing a vodka shot. Okay, now duplicate that background, warp it again, suck it all into his mouth. He's gobbling it up. There's a little gap showing in his feathers there, so I'm just going to composite that in from behind with internal compositing. Okay, now let's get rid of all of that so it's just white for all this mist. And go to my topmost visible layer, hold down Option, layer merge visible, and I should only need one more frame to finish this up. Command A, Command C, paste it in. Okay, now This is maybe the easiest one. Command D, deselect. Now I'm just going to duplicate that combined character layer. I'm going to merge it all together with the little fill. Okay, now I'm just going to move him backwards. Or maybe I'll do the full puppet warp since I've been doing that. Puppet warp, get the joints. He's going to now step backwards. Boom. Boom. And his head is going to pivot out as well. And let's bring that foot back and that leg back, like he's leaving the stage, because that's exactly what he's doing. Okay, and now this is going to be gone. And we turn off all the mist. So it's just clean and white. So from that to that. And maybe I even want to push his head back a little bit more. So I'm just going to use regular warp because his head got pretty distorted. And I'm just going to push it back like that. And maybe regular warp again and get his eye to that corner. Okay. And maybe do I want to move his mouth? No, but I'll just trim it a little so it changes in its appearance. And maybe I'll close it up just a little bit. Which I can just do by changing its angle. And then Command X, Command V, put it on its own layer so I can move it into place, and then move it underneath. Yeah, so like I said, lots of compositing. All right, so maybe something like this. All right, so hold down Option, Layer, Merge Visible, Command A, Command C, paste it in. Now let's go back to my assets. Let's deselect, save all those assets. That's all my puppet pieces. Now these are all my frames, 31 frames. I'm going to make frames from layers on the timeline. I'm going to set them all to be, let's say, yeah, the entire thing, 0.4 seconds. I know the beginning works. It's more like the end that I'm worried about. But worried, it is what it is. So the big transformation happens there. That's pretty believable. And then it starts getting crazy. Right? And then he walks off. So now I've gotten through my storyboard. And he's leaving just by backing up. That's a little different from my storyboard. But now what? Well, now I'm going to add a blank frame. And that's easy enough. I'm going to show you how I do it. This is called animating on the stage. I'm going to add a frame in my timeline, just like I was adding a layer, but this is now in the timeline window. That adds a duplicate of this last frame. But for this frame, I am now going to program in a layer style. And that layer style, I'm going to say color overlay. And I'm going to make it normal at 100%. And I'm going to make it solid white. So now I have it and say, okay. So what's fun is when you animate from the timeline, you can actually program in layer styles. You see how the layer style is turned on for that frame, but not for any of the previous frames. What's cool about that is now I can use that to reset to the beginning, what's called a cross dissolve. So I have this frame. How do I get that to then slowly fade into this? Well, I could make a new frame of this, move it to the end. I could do lots of things. The easiest way is to actually use some of the programming within Photoshop. This is called